So, we're talking today about some of the perks and some of the drawbacks of running a business as a mom.
Mhm.
I'm here with Liz from Standard Wax, and she purchased this business just about 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm excited to join her in this conversation and hear a little bit more about that. So, Liz, why don't you walk us through just kind of that process of acquiring the business and becoming a mom. And then let's talk about some of those drawbacks and some of those perks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. But I took over this small candle business about 2.5 years ago, and it really honestly kind of fell in my lap at the perfect time. I had had my daughter 6 months ago, and I was starting to really feel like I wanted to become like back in the workforce and find my place of what I had known prior to her and just getting some structure back into my life. And so I didn't know what that could be because I had traveled so much for my job previously. And my husband travels for work. So it really felt like I was kind of stuck in my work experience prior to what it could be going forward. And um, this candle business, the person who had started it, was just kind of wanting the next thing in her life. She had run it for 12 years. Um, and I think she had taken it as far as she wanted, and COVID hit, and that brought a whole new set of challenges. And I think at that point, she just didn't have that fire in her enough to figure out that next round. And so my friend had been working there part-time, and I had just started talking to her about it. And when I was working in retail, a lot of it was about candles. And so I kind of knew what customers were looking for. And an idea about price points and just different scent variations and, how a candle looks and how much does that matter? And just little tidbits like that. But I never poured a candle. I knew nothing about that. So I was just really interested in talking to the previous owner, and they had one employee, so it was nothing huge. So it really felt manageable for me. And the location was close to my house. And, I think that like ultimately the perks were there immediately, being able to be my own boss, set my own schedule. Um, just that flexibility is completely invaluable when you're a new mom, and especially a new mom for the first time, just trying to figure it all out. Being able to stay at home when my kid was sick or, go in late, and you just really can't pay for that. And I value that so, so, so much in being able to do this and to, really support myself through scheduling to have that flexibility. So that is probably the number one perk of taking over this business. I think um, truly the hardest part of it is not only never having poured a candle before, but trying to figure out what does it mean to take over a business, and what does that mean for how you feel successful, not only as a new owner, but as like a mom in this whole new world of a business I had never been part of before. And that meant not having a steady paycheck. That meant thinking about my success really differently than I had before. So I think that probably was the most unexpected challenge for me. I went into this and everyone's like, "Oh, what are you going to do? And what candles are you going to make?" And I'm like, I took this over yesterday. I don't know. I've never like dreamed about a candle before in my life. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Um, and just the normal trial and errors that people go through as business owners, but also trying to feel validated, like as a mom going back to work, not making steady paycheck, not figuring out if this is even going to be successful. Like I almost went back to work to like try and feel a little bit of a better balance for me, but it actually was really hard for me because I was not feeling successful in my new workplace because we weren't profitable and I was really trying to figure it out. But then I'm spending all this time away from my child that I chose to do. And it was just this constant like, am I making the right decision? And although there were so many perks to being your own boss, it was really challenging mentally for me to figure out, like, how do I end up feeling successful without those normal mile markers that people have to do that, that would normally come. So it
Yeah.
is and was a lot.
No, I hear that a lot, and, I was an entrepreneur when I first had my son as well,
Yeah,
and same, I can totally relate to those feelings that feel like, "Okay, this has all the makings of being a dream situation."
yeah.
Like, people would literally give anything to be in this situation, and then
Mhm.
at the same time feeling like, "Okay, I don't have any markers of success with
Yeah,
being a mom, and I don't
yep,
have any markers of success in my own company. Nobody knows
yep,
the day-to-day. Nobody knows when I'm doing, client work or,
yeah,
working on the business itself, and it's just especially, as somebody who thrives on, like, "Okay, I had a great day. Like, I
yeah,
met the mark of what I was supposed to do in my job. Um, that is a huge adjustment. So I want to dig in a little bit deeper there, because I know as we're focusing on women entrepreneurs this month, that's something that I think a lot of women
yeah,
can relate to. So for you, how did you find those, I guess, places where you could feel successful? Like, what were your new KPIs? Since
yeah.
nobody else was giving those to you, what were those that you came up with?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, it's still something that I'm working on 3 years in. This is the first year that we're gonna be profitable, and once again,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's a big deal, but then also it's like, well, you gotta put that money back in to grow, and you have to spend money to make money, and so still, it's not I'm very lucky that it's not doesn't have to be about pulling the dollars out the second I get them, and I can reinvest it because I do really see, um the vision of this company and growing it, but, like, as everyone knows, in the growth phase, it's really, really difficult, but to not be able to see that success, like, monetarily in my personal life and taking that out, it's hard, and I think that, like, I have a wonderful husband that supports me, like, mentally through all of it and in so many different aspects, but not everybody has that, and at the same time, although I have that, I am still very much an independent woman that doesn't always wanna rely on that long term and wants to feel like I'm able to contribute to the household, and so for me, it can't be that right now in the growth phase, so I've really tried to figure out, like, A, what success means. And it is, being profitable. It's about finding what this company is going to be. I had no idea. Even if it took when I moved to Ohio and moved into Rise of I found this kind of more niche candle and and that's really really been the huge success for me and I can talk a little bit about why that's been successful.
Yeah.
But I think once I realized, okay, trust your gut, trust your style, and trust that it can be unique and how to make that as profitable as possible. And doing that little bits at a time, I've started to see success in that. And I think one of the things that always was interesting to me is my friends and family. The first thing that they hear when they're taking over candle business is, oh, how do I buy your candle? And one of the most interesting parts for me thinking back on that made me feel not so successful is actually my business is not having my line of candles in stores. I help other retailers make their own lines of candles. I do a ton of corporate gifting and do their logos on candles. So for me, it felt like a bummer when I was like, oh, you can't. And it made me feel like, oh, people are not understanding my business. They're not knowing if I'm successful or not because they can't physically buy it. And I went through this whole trial of maybe wholesaling and manufacturing is not for me. Maybe I do need to make my own line of candles. And I found myself doing it for other people. And I just was like, I'm not going to feel successful just because some of my friends can buy some of my candles. Like that's not going to make me successful in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things. So for me, it was finding out what wasn't making me feel validated. And then once it started to become profitable, then I was like, okay, I'm doing the right things. And, I have a plan on the next few years, and I didn't have that before. And I think that that's a huge win too. So just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that's so valuable to touch on there is that, like, sometimes finding out who you're not or what you're
Mhm.
not is just as important as finding out what you
Yeah.
are or who you are. And I think what I loved about what you said is really leaning into your intuition to say,
Mhm.
like, okay, who am I doing this for? Like, trust your
Yeah.
gut. Like, okay, I know what my style is. I know what my vision is. I know, like, even when other people can't necessarily see it right now, the same part of like nobody else is validating what you're doing because
Yeah.
nobody can see it. Nobody can see that kind of behind the scenes. This is who I am. This is the vision that I'm going toward. This is how I'm going to get this accomplished. And I think that's such a critical piece, especially to your point when you've got this like imposter syndrome
Yeah.
like I'm not profitable yet. How
Yeah.
can I take this risk on myself? How can I take this risk just based on a gut feeling when I'm not even making money? Like
Yeah.
what is happening right now?
Yeah.
So I would love to hear that kind of process of you really leaning into like, okay, this was my gut. I needed to trust my gut
Yeah.
and how that's kind of paying off for you.
Yeah. So, like I said, when I took this over and people were like, "Well, what candle?" And I was like, I have no idea." One of my hobbies is interior design, and my husband and I have flipped houses. We've moved a lot for his job, and everywhere we've moved, we have ended up flipping a house and done really well with it. And although I don't have the background in interior design, it's kind of held me back from, like, really trying to go forward with it, but I still love to do it personally, and I think the same thing, it translates. When I was working in retail, I love clothes, I love just style overall, and so I think that that's the big takeaway from my previous experience is trusting my style. And when I was took over the business, the previous person had all these vessels that they offered at these certain price points. And I really didn't want to rock the boat too much because, she'd been doing it so long and it had been successful. And I think as I tried to do that, I was getting clients that they would say, okay, what's your cheapest vessel? How fast can you get it to me? And I was really working my butt off trying to drive my prices down to get things done faster. And I was working really, really hard, and still people would be disappointed with my prices. And they're hand poured, they're premium ingredients. And it's really hard when it's me and was at the time one other person pouring. I'm like, I cannot compete with these huge companies that are able to buy things in bulk to lower their prices, and I just couldn't compete, and I was trying so hard, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" And that's when I started to question, like, "What am I doing here?" And that's when I briefly tried to, like, go make my own line, but there's so many amazing candles out there, and I'm just like, I don't know." And so I had found this unique vessel, and what I do is they're fully 100% marble. Um, and I was just like, this is the most beautiful thing. Marble's so in right now. And I was like, I need to figure out how I can do this. But the cost per vessel of the marble versus the little glass jar that I had been doing, the second I did the math, I just freaked out. I was like, all I'm hearing is people want cheaper, but I'm thinking of going, times, I don't even know off the top of my head, times 45. And it was so scary. And for 6 months, I didn't do it because here I am not profitable, thinking of spending a fortune on inventory when my sales are low and people are asking for cheaper. So I'm not listening to my customer and I'm spending money I don't have. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But you know what? The second I launched them, it has made me just completely rethink of everything I'm more profitable per unit on those vessels, and they're so much easier to pour, and people the each average transaction is higher now than it was, but the quantities are so much more manageable. And, a little bit of detailed candle talk, but glass is actually much harder to pour in because it has to be perfect. And when you see through it, marble, you don't see through it. So I'm pouring
Yeah.
faster. Like it's just, and people, they see it and they're like, I've never seen anything like this before. And the fact that I really am not just trying to make my own label and sell that to stores in my own line. I would limit myself so much with trying to make my own line with these marbles as opposed to helping, the 200 customers I've grown over in this past 8 months because they're like, "Oh, you can help me make a line? Oh, you can do it labelless? I'm an interior designer. I want to give these as gifts. I don't want a label on them." Like, it has just opened my eyes to what this business can be, and if I didn't trust my gut with that and just go for it, I probably this was a make or break year for me, and I don't think I would have continued. So, I'm not saying don't listen to your customers and spend money you don't have, but I guess I am
You're
in sort
saying
of.
take a calculated risk.
Yes, okay, great. You said it.
Yes. So here's what I love about this. Okay. What I'm most curious about is what at that 6 month mark, you said you had this 6 month delay of like,
Mhm.
okay, I found these vessels. I
Yeah,
really felt like, okay, this is my gut is telling me this is the way to go. But
yeah.
you spent 6 months kind of sitting on that, dreaming about that, working through that. What was like your okay, this is pushing me over the edge to take the leap moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just kept thinking about what makes me different, right? And, like, how can this be successful? And my two people played like a big role in this. One, I actually was helping a woman. She had this like unique candle idea and I'd never seen it before. And I was actually pouring them for her and they were taking off so, so much. But it was just like this unique, she just woke up and had this idea. And she was like, well, you know, because she was also in talks to buy the candle business. And she's like, well, you kind of just bought a job and I was like, yeah, I did. And the difference between you and I is you had a brilliant idea and I did not. So I had to go this path. And so I didn't have this brilliant idea, but I saw her success with the uniqueness of what she was selling. And because I would talk about it all the time to my husband, being like, I can't believe she's selling so many candles. And like, in all honesty, it wasn't my taste at all. Um, but my husband would be like, well, how do you make a unique candle? Like, how do you differentiate? And I would get annoyed by him because I was like, well, how do you think of a new candle? There's a million candles. But it was then that I was just like, well, maybe this is it. And maybe this is my way of doing it. And when I did the math, it wasn't the I tried to stick to a lower inventory, um, but I saw the success right away, and I then did a lot more to try and bring my costs down even more. But yeah, it was just I think it was the 2 experiences I had. One, seeing this person really take off because of her uniqueness, and then constantly having my husband in my ear, "So sorry."
That's
Um,
okay. Do you wanna
yeah,
just, like, whenever he's finished, just start back,
yeah.
like, it was 2 things, so you know what
Okay.
I'm saying? Then
Yes.
they'll just edit this part out. It's
Okay,
totally fine.
so sorry.
It's
I
not a big
can't
deal
get
at
him.
all.
Okay. Louis, come here.
My dog is sitting right beside me too, so
Like, if UPS is here, it's over with.
I love it.
Okay. Um, so it was really those 2 things. Having this person who had been so successful with their unique idea and also having my husband challenging me to use the success that I saw and make it my own way. And I think it just pushed me to take that little risk in investing in it, and I pretty quickly saw that it was the right move.
I love that. Okay, here's a just a like a juicy tidbit question
Yeah.
is I know for me, like when my husband is trying to tell me something that I don't necessarily want to hear or that I don't want to agree with, like
Yeah.
I kind of want it to be my idea
Yeah.
sometimes. Um so what was that like kind of having him encouraging you and, like, supporting you, but in a way that was kind of challenging you as a business owner to grow and expand your horizons, like, what was that like? Just kind of
Yeah. It's interesting. I think, his world and the business that he's in charge of is a I don't understand anything that he's saying. They scan the ground with radar to locate pipes and utilities. And now he's on like the e executive side, and I don't know anything about it. Um, and like I said, my background in retail, we talked in like KPIs and just different indicators than sort of what he speaks in. And sometimes there's lap over, but it often just does not overlap in terms of what we mean. And so I think he thinks of success one way, and I think of success in another way. And, just even the way to be able to say, okay, it's profitable. We would actually disagree on what profitable means in terms of like right now, what I have in the bank versus what orders I have. And, just taking all of that in. And so it is really hard when you speak different languages. And I think that it's really great to have someone to push you to think differently about it. But also sometimes you just kind of got to block it out and be like, you know what? I'm in it every day and I know it's working and I know the sales and I also see the bank accounts. And so he can bring up EBITDA, whatever he wants, but I'm not going to do that math because right now in this stage, I don't have time to go through the nitty gritty. And I honestly don't care. Like, I just don't care right now if
yeah.
I'm finally feeling good about it. Um, and like I said, I could take out some money, but I know that's not the journey for me right now. So I think I just have to like live in this middle ground of like understanding that we speak different languages, but appreciating where he pushes me and pulls me, but also like sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
Personally,
love that. Yeah, I love that. I what I do love is that I think for some people, it's really easy to be like, "You don't understand," and
Mhm.
just kind of block them out totally, and I
Yeah,
really have seen so many instances where it's like, you know, your spouse really wants you to be successful, and
yeah,
they're trying to kind of give you an insight into some blind spots that you might honestly
yeah,
have going on. At least this is what happens for me.
yeah,
And so I love when I hear stories of how, you know, couples and families can kind of work together and see, like, okay, well, when I first heard it, I wasn't super thrilled about it, but I
yeah,
do see that you're trying to help me see these blind spots and it really ends up helping grow the business. So I love
yeah.
that.
I truly think, like, where his skill set comes in the most is when we're a little bit bigger, like, and it's just so small right now, and my next step is to hire someone. So I had when I took over, I told you I had one employee, and she was really in charge of all production. The previous owner had taken on just the back half of it, sales and design and just that customer interfacing part.
Mhm.
Um, but for me, being in retail for so long and being a leader more than anything else, um, is what I loved about my previous role. So I was really excited to have a team, but I realized like when I started with anthropology, I started as a manager in training, and that was at 22 years old. And by 24, I was running their highest volume store in New York City with 200 employees. But I knew how to do every job the best before I became like really, really managing the whole ship. And I think
Yeah.
that when I jumped in, I wanted to learn how to do it all. And, our roles really overlapped because I didn't want to just sit at home on a computer. I needed to learn how to do everything. I needed to learn where we get our supplies, how we ship through UPS. Like, I didn't know any of this. So I think within the first 6 months, I really realized like, I need to do this on my own. And then when I'm maxed out, then I'll hire someone because I know I'm maxed out. But to like try and find work if we're not busy for both of us, when I don't know what I'm doing, it just didn't feel right. So that's the next thing my husband's pushing me on is I do need to find a helper, but I think when you're first profitable, the thought of spending money on something that I'm doing is super scary. And I'm just like, I can do it. I can do it all. And for right now, I still can, but I know that I'm hoping and knowing that time is coming to an end soon. So, but right now I'm okay, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that ties into a question that I have that you kind of touched on earlier, which was like when you decided to come and rent space at Rise,
Yeah.
that things kind of started to change in their own way.
Yeah.
And I talk with entrepreneurs a lot, both women entrepreneurs and men entrepreneurs. That's like I don't wanna pay for space that I get for free at my house, like, or I
Yeah.
don't wanna like, to your point, I don't wanna pay an employee when I can do this myself,
Yeah.
and that concept of, like, okay, opening yourself up, giving yourself some margin for with something I'm sure you would pay a helper less than you would probably pay yourself if you
Yeah.
were getting paid, and so
True.
that concept of, like, how do you get to the place mentally, um where you realize, like, while this is a cash outlay, like, we could talk about how you got to that point on the rise side of things.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I'm assuming were you doing the candles at your house before?
I wasn't. So actually, when I took over the business, they were already in a warehouse. Um,
Okay.
One of the really challenging things was when I took it over, we actually got kicked out because they sold the building. So she was there for 10 years. And the month that I took over, the building sold. So that in itself was challenging to like find a new space, move all this stuff. And then when I found out we were moving again for my husband's job, and the most expensive part of what I do is the oils, and you can't move cross state with oils. So I had to throw out so much money, plus the moving fees. So it's just that's a whole other part of why things have just been kind of challenging and not profitable. So when I was looking at a warehouse when I was to move here, I knew it worked for me and I knew it didn't work for me. Because I was just trying to find the cheapest thing in the place that I had to move from before. Um, and, in all honesty, I think one of the things was safety. It was not in a good area, especially when I was looking for it to be cheap. And then in, more manufacturing warehouse type areas, it's just kind of desolate. And I found myself in like almost like a car parts area of Phoenix. And, I had to call the police. Like I work by myself. I had glass so they could see in. They knew when I was there. Um, and I just saw way too much and I felt so unsafe. So that was really what I was looking for when moving. And then also, the having we have Neil, but having someone at the front desk, like, help me to have the packages dropped off with being working for myself and having not typical hours and being a mom and all those things, I would miss so many packages, and it was so detrimental to my time to have to go hunt them down or reschedule. So the fact that I had someone at the front office to help me with that, um, and then the roll-up door, that was just like chef's kiss because as I grow, my orders get bigger and to be able to use a palette, is really, really helpful for me. So when I saw those 3 things, like those were the 3 that I were looking for. And like beyond that, I just feel super safe there. Like I although I would love a window, it's actually like makes me feel better that if
Yeah.
I'm working there at night, or anything, I feel totally safe. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
And do you find yourself working there at, like, random hours of the day because, like, your husband's home with your kid or, like, whatever?
not as much as I thought, to be honest. I think because of the shift in me not making hundreds and hundreds of candles like I was the cheaper route when I was having to work really late and work so many hours, this has allowed me to kind of pace my work a little bit better where I'm getting more consistent orders and more consistent tickets for those orders. So I'm not just getting like, oh, I need 1,000 candles in 2 weeks where I was before. And then it would be about those really big production days. So although I did think I was going to use it for that way, I don't work there off hours too much, But at the same time, I do once in a while, we'll go in on the weekend and, I just feel totally, totally safe. And the other thing is that when I was thinking about it, although it may not be me, my helper is ideally someone in college because, I just have that flexibility. They can pour candles and help me whenever they're free. And a lot of times that's nights for people. So I want the next person who helps me to feel really safe too.
Yeah, and I think that's a really critical thing to point out because, like, as somebody that really cares about your product, you care about every part of your business, which is your business and your employees. So, like, you
Yeah.
wanna make sure that that's working for everybody.
Yeah.
So, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, I love the way that this is going with the brand. What else do you feel like we have kind of missed or that you were like, "Okay, I think this is something that's really important or valuable to women?"
I think that was kind of it. I mean, I think like the thing that I'm always still aware of and working on is I think as women and as moms, like just needing to feel like we're nailing everything. And I work on it all the time with myself. But I often, as in this interview, being very late, I recognize can't be 100% all the time. I am disorganized. My warehouse is a mess. No one could understand my crazy, but it works for me. And if something slips, that it's my warehouse organization as opposed to me forgetting to pick up my kid or, I- not being able to, whatever it is, the million things we have going on, I know where I can push and pull, and it's not all going to be perfect. And although we always want it to be, it's not. And I think that's
Yeah.
okay too. So I really try to think about that all the time. But other than that, no. I mean, I feel like that's just been my entire journey the past 2.5 years and learned a lot, but still learning a ton.
Yeah.
But just really, really along for the ride.
Yeah, I love it. So this has been such a fun conversation. As we're wrapping things up, I would love for you to share with women who are kind of in that place that you were at the beginning of this journey. Um, what is one thing that you would recommend that they do, and one thing that you would do totally different if you had to go back to that place?
Yeah. I mean, I think we touched on it a little. The thing that I would do time and time again is go with your gut because if you work by yourself like I do, that's all I have, right? Is to know how what the vision will be, and that's all on me. So I think always go with your gut. Um, and then the thing that I would do differently is um, I use the term slow down to speed up a lot. And if I could go back when purchasing the business, and this is just one example, but it does tie into a lot. I was just, you get so excited and you want to just jump ahead to 1, 2 years after, but really like being able to thoughtfully slow down, ask the right questions, take your time, um, on making sure it's the right move for you. It's integral. I didn't know what questions to ask when taking over business. It all happened to had to happen very fast because it was the end of the year. So I was feeling so much pressure to sign the dotted line. But in looking back, I just learned so much, and I really should have just given myself the space to ask the questions. And if they didn't go with me, they didn't go with me. But I think it's really important because you learn so much by taking the time to ask the questions. And if you don't, who knows? Like if I didn't have the time to ask myself, do I want to have a kid? Maybe I wouldn't have. And so I just think it's so important to give yourself the space to think. And we don't do that a lot. So
I love that. I think for women, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, there's so much pulling on your time and just
yeah.
giving yourself a beat to be like, okay,
Yeah.
whew, what is going on? What do I want? What do I need right now? I think that's so important. So, Liz, I've loved this conversation. Where can people that are listening connect with you and learn more about your business and learn more about
Yeah.
what's going on with you?
Yeah, so Standard Wax is the business, standardwax.com. We have an Instagram, Standard Wax, and you can always reach out to me directly, Liz at standardwax.com.
I love it. Thanks so much for your time today.